Hello and welcome to the News Central TV. My name is Mazino Apil. Now here are stories making headlines beyond the continent. We begin the news in the U.S., where trucks and cars have continued crossing the Canada-U.S. border as President Donald Trump prepares to unveil sweeping Liberation Day tariffs, a move that could disrupt the global economy. Set to be announced in the White House, Rose Garden, the tariffs are aimed at countering what Trump tagged unfair trade practices. While he insisted that the measures will bring a golden age for U.S. industry, the White House, however, acknowledged last-minute adjustments. Trump has long championed tariffs as a solution to trade imbalances, despite warnings from economists that they could trigger a recession. Meanwhile, global markets have remained on edge ahead of the announcement, while affected countries urged negotiations and prepared retaliatory measures. Now, for more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, you're welcome. Good evening. Please, if you'll tell us, the Liberation Day announcement is coming soon. How big are the tariffs that President Trump could actually put in?
Yeah, the announcement is expected in under an hour. He's going to make that announcement in the Rose Garden, and he said whatever tariff he announces at that time will come into effect immediately. Look, we don't actually know what the tariffs could be. On the campaign trail, Donald Trump was saying that he was looking at 10% tariffs across the board, but some of these tariffs could be as high as 60% for goods coming in from China, or 25% for goods coming into the US from Canada. The problem is we just do not know what Trump will say until he says it. We don't know what his policy will be until he sets that out in the Rose Garden in under an hour. Countries like the UK, where I am, where Sir Keir Starmer was questioned quite a lot about tariffs today at Prime Minister's question time. The Prime Minister, David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, and other members of the government are bracing themselves for tariffs and bracing themselves for double-digit tariffs at that. But until we get that announcement, we just do not know across the board what percentage of tariffs will be put on goods coming into the United States.
So, Afia, which countries could be affected by these new tariffs?
Well, pretty much everyone. Every single country across the world that trades with the United States is under threat from tariffs. Now, the Treasury Secretary said last month that the United States were focused on what they call the dirty 15. That's 15% of countries that account for the bulk of trade from the US and impose tariffs and other rules that put US firms at a disadvantage. Now, these countries are Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, the whole of the European Union. You're looking at India, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Mexico, of course, which is currently trying to negotiate its own deal, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Switzerland, Taiwan, Turkey, the United Kingdom, and Vietnam. And so those are the countries that could see the highest tariffs. But it's thought that any country across the world, which is probably every country that trades with the United States, could see tariffs imposed.
So I guess the next question should be, how big an impact would these tariffs make?
Well, it's going to have a huge impact. It was estimated today that possibly 25,000 jobs could be lost here in the UK. 500,000 jobs could be lost in the United States. And the question is that when you put a tax on import or exporting goods, say you have a tax on goods coming into America, it's the importer that will pay those taxes, the company that receives it, it's the company that has a tariff on them, and then therefore they will pass that on, and the easiest person to pass that on to is the consumer. So therefore it could mean higher prices, and higher prices not just across the US, but across the entire world, and that hits consumer confidence, and then you start hearing the R word, recession. So it doesn't look like anybody really is going to come off very well if you have 25% tariffs splashed across the board, all across the world. Everybody will pay in some way. And the president has been saying that there could be some short-term pain for long-term gain. But perhaps that pain may not be as short-term as he thinks, and the gains may not be as big as he would like them to be.
Well, Afia, thank you very much, and good evening from us here in Nigeria.
Thank you.
Now, in the meantime, Mexico is preparing a comprehensive plan to protect its economy as it faces new import tariffs from the United States, according to President Claudia Sheinbaum. The announcement comes as President Donald Trump prepares to unveil new tariffs in Mexico, which could have wide-ranging effects on trade and the global economy. Speaking at a regular morning news conference, Sheinbaum emphasized that Mexico's response will not involve retaliatory tariffs. It is not a matter of, if you impose tariffs, I will impose tariffs in return, she stated, focusing instead on measures to strengthen the country's economy. Her plans aim to ensure Mexico's resilience in the face of potential economic challenges.
Mañana vamos a anunciar, es un programa integral lo que vamos a anunciar. No es un asunto de si tú me pones tarifas, yo te pongo tarifas. Nuestro interés es el fortalecimiento de la economía mexicana, entre otras de la industria automotriz.
Now let's also tell you that the United States has revoked the visa of former Costa Rican President Oscar Arias, surprising the 84-year-old Nobel Peace Prize laureate. Arias, who's 84, expressed his surprise at the decision, revealing that he was notified via a brief email from the U.S. government citing Section 221 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which allows for visa cancellations at the government's discretion. Arias, a longtime critic of U.S. foreign policy, particularly on issues like China, expressed uncertainty about whether his outspoken views influenced the decision. While the U.S. State Department hasn't provided specific reasons, critics suggest political motives behind the move. Arias has emphasized that he will not be silenced, raising concerns about freedom of speech and international diplomacy.
Es que para mí ha sido obviamente una sorpresa. Ha sido una sorpresa porque desconozco cuáles son las razones para que el Departamento de Estado, y presumo que es el Departamento de Estado, haya tomado esa decisión. Alguien como Barack Obama esté muy contento de que a un colega suyo le quiten la visa por alguna razón, no sé. Y ya veremos a ver qué dicen mis colegas premios Nobel de la Paz con respecto a eso. Hoy creo que se ha puesto de moda el eliminar visas, pero la verdad, en honor a la verdad, es un castigo que se ha utilizado con mucha frecuencia. ¿Por qué razones? No lo sé. Posiblemente sean razones diferentes. Hoy en día, lo que yo pienso es que Estados Unidos ha considerado que China es su nuevo enemigo. En el pasado fue el comunismo, después fue el terrorismo.
Now, in the meantime, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has expressed support for a U.S. court ruling that temporarily halts former President Donald Trump's plan to end deportation protections for Venezuelans. This legal decision is seen as a significant win for the hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants living in the United States. In the same broadcast, Maduro reaffirmed Venezuela's claims to the Essequibo region, a disputed area that is currently under Guyanese control. His comments came shortly after the U.S. issued a stern warning to Venezuela, urging the government to refrain from any actions that would escalate tensions with Guyana, a country rich in oil reserves.
Bueno, me parece una buena decisión de este juez que le garantice a los venezolanos migrantes en Estados Unidos sus derechos a permanencia, a trabajo, su derecho a juicio, su derecho en todos los sentidos de los derechos civiles, jurídicos, sus derechos humanos. Saludo la decisión del juez que bloqueó la decisión de la administración Trump de quitarle el TPS a más de 170,000 venezolanos y venezolanas que se encuentran, migraron por razones económicas y trabajan de manera decente en los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica. Salgo en defensa de los migrantes venezolanos que viven en los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica.
In a speech marking the 43rd anniversary of the Falklands War, Argentine President Javier Milei expressed his desire for Argentina to become a powerhouse so that the people of the Falkland Islands would prefer to be Argentinian. Milei's comments reflect Argentina's long-standing claim to the Falklands which is an archipelago located 600 kilometers off its coast in the South Atlantic. Now, the Falklands have been a point of contention between Argentina and the United Kingdom for almost 200 years, with the 1982 war resulting in a British victory and significant casualties on both sides. Milei's remarks highlights his administration's desire to strengthen Argentina's global influence while asserting its sovereignty over the islands.
Y si de soberanía sobre las Malvinas se trata, nosotros siempre dejamos claro que el voto más importante de todos es el que se hace con los pies y anhelamos que los malvinenses decidan algún día votarnos con los pies a nosotros. Por eso buscamos ser una potencia a punto tal que ellos prefieran ser argentinos y ni siquiera haga falta usar la disuasión o el convencimiento para lograrlo. Y por eso mismo emprendimos el camino liberador que estamos transitando, para que Argentina sea el país más libre del mundo y vuelva a tener el PBI per cápita más alto del planeta. Quiero volver a insistir en nuestro reclamo inclaudicable por las Islas Malvinas, reforzando el compromiso de agotar todos los recursos diplomáticos a nuestro alcance para que vuelvan a manos argentinas. Finalmente, a los veteranos, a sus familias y a todos quienes visten un uniforme en defensa de la patria, les reitero mi eterno agradecimiento en nombre de todos los argentinos. La Argentina necesita unas fuerzas armadas robustas. Son necesarias para defender nuestro extenso territorio de potenciales amenazas en un contexto global de creciente incertidumbre. También son imprescindibles en cualquier discusión diplomática. Ante esto, la historia es implacable. Un país fuerte es un país respetado. Esto no quiere decir que la fuerza hace el derecho, pero tampoco se puede llevar a cabo una política exterior desde un idealismo ingenuo e infantil.
We now head to Europe, where we understand that UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has vowed to knee-jerk reaction, or rather no knee-jerk reaction, to upcoming US tariffs, reaffirming that his government is preparing for all eventualities. Speaking at Prime Minister's questions, Starmer emphasized a cool-headed approach as US President Donald Trump prepares to unveil sweeping Liberation Day tariffs. Meanwhile, Trump promised the measures will stop America from being ripped off and usher in a golden age of US industry. However, the White House admitted that key details are still being finalized, with critics warning that the tariffs could spark a global trade war and push the US toward recession. With global markets on edge, affected countries have called for talks while preparing retaliatory measures. Trump's announcement is set to come in later in the White House Rose Garden.
Mr. Speaker, we've been preparing for all eventualities ahead of the confirmation of US tariffs later today. Let me be clear with the House. A trade war is in nobody's interest. And the country deserves, and we will take, a calm, pragmatic approach. That's why constructive talks are progressing to agree a wider economic prosperity deal with the US. That's why we're working with all industries and sectors likely to be impacted. Our decisions will always be guided by our national interest, and that's why we have prepared for all eventualities, and we will rule nothing out.
He says he's preparing for eventualities. Can the Prime Minister tell us exactly what he is doing to protect the British car industry from his failure to negotiate?
There are constructive talks that are ongoing on a wider economic prosperity deal with the US. That is really important at this moment. We are working with all sectors that are likely to be impacted, and we're guided by our national interest at all times. And that's why we've said we won't rule anything out. But it is important at a moment like this that we don't have knee-jerk reactions, that we are actually cool-headed about this, and that's why we won't rule anything out.
Will he now provide similar leadership with an economic coalition of the willing against Trump's tariffs for free trade so we can avoid a global trade war and a global recession?
We're going on a short break now. When we return, UK condemns Israeli strikes amidst rising civilian casualties. Stay with us. Welcome back. Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has arrived in Nuuk, Greenland, to begin a visit aimed at strengthening unity between Denmark and the autonomous territory. The visit comes at a time of heightened tension between Denmark and the United States, with U.S. President Donald Trump recently challenging Denmark's sovereignty over Greenland and imposing tariffs on Europe. Frederiksen's trip seeks to reassure Greenland of Denmark's commitments to its autonomy, while also addressing growing concerns about the strategic importance of the island, which Trump previously expressed interest in acquiring. The visit underscores the growing geopolitical challenges in the Arctic region. Now the news continues in Europe, where a trial over water contamination with vinyl chloride monomer and manganese has opened at the Orleans court, making a historic legal case in France. Residents from 3 municipalities in Lorraine filed a complaint against their water union, accusing it of negligence. Lawyer Gabriel Jean, representing the affected residents, emphasized the significance of the case, stating that it is the first time a judge will rule on a water distributor's responsibility for CVM contamination. The trial has drawn attention to long-standing concerns over water safety and public health. Plaintiffs have argued that authorities failed to protect residents from exposure to harmful substances. The outcome of the case could set a precedent for future water contamination lawsuits in France.
Quand on voit qu'il y a des valeurs qui sont 30 à 40 fois supérieures à la réglementation et qu'il n'y a aucune action depuis ce moment-là qui est faite, il n'y a pas eu d'autres contrôles de fait, alors que les réglementations sont claires.Elles disent qu'il faut avoir plusieurs contrôles effectués dès qu'une détection est faite. Il n'y en a eu aucun. Donc tout ça fait que la population aujourd'hui, sur les 3 communes, est fortement inquiète, surtout qu'on a des cartes qui nous montrent que les pollutions sont très importantes sur au moins les 2 communes sur 3. Comme ces contrôles datent au plus vieux de 2021 et qu'il n'y a pas eu de vrais contrôles réalisés depuis, suivant des campagnes telles que définies par la réglementation, eh ben, ces pollutions perdurent et nous sommes toujours exposés à ce gaz cancérigène.
Alors écoutez, c'est un procès historique pour nous, puisque c'est la première fois en France qu'un juge va se prononcer sur la responsabilité d'un distributeur d'eau vis-à-vis de la problématique du chlorure de vinyle monomère. Donc évidemment, ce qu'on attend de ce procès, c'est la reconnaissance d'une part de la violation de l'obligation de résultat qui a incombé au syndicat des eaux, en l'occurrence fournir de l'eau potable, et également la reconnaissance de la violation de l'obligation d'information des usagers, puisque ces derniers n'ont été prévenus que très tardivement de la contamination de leur réseau au chlorure de vinyle monomère.
Non, la population a été prévenue quand il y a eu obligation de les prévenir. Jusqu'à 2023, on n'a, nous au SIAB, jamais été obligés ou incités à faire des communications. Par contre, les informations, les gens peuvent les avoir très facilement. Maître Galil l'a précisé pendant sa plaidoirie.
Now, let's also tell you that the UK has stated it does not support Israel's expansion of military operations in Gaza, following renewed strikes that have killed dozens, including a UN facility. Now, Junior Foreign Office Minister Hamish Falconer has told Parliament that Britain is deeply concerned about the situation, urging restraint. Israel also announced plans to seize large areas of Gaza, with Defense Minister Israel Katz confirming increased military presence to destroy terrorist infrastructure. Gaza's Civil Defense Agency has reported casualties, including children, after Israeli strikes on the UNRWA building. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry, however, condemned the attack, calling for international intervention. Israel has resumed intense airstrikes and ground operations since March 18th, breaking a nearly 2-month ceasefire and sparking renewed global scrutiny over its military action in Gaza.
Concerns about the resumption of hostilities in Gaza. The UK does not support an expansion of Israel's military operations. Continued fighting and more bloodshed is in nobody's interest. All parties, including Israel, must observe international humanitarian law. We urge all parties to return to dialogue and ceasefire negotiations, ensuring the return of all who have endured unimaginable suffering.
Now, in the meantime, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that the Israeli military is dissecting the Gaza Strip and seizing territory as part of efforts to retrieve hostages held by Hamas. In a statement, Netanyahu said Israel is applying step-by-step pressure on Hamas to force the return of the hostages. The military is focusing on striking terrorists, destroying infrastructure, and gaining control of key areas within Gaza. Netanyahu emphasized that this operation is part of Israel's broader strategy to dismantle Hamas's capabilities and ensure the safe return of those held captive in the region.
ברצועת עזה העברנו הילוך. צה"ל תופס שטחים, מכה במחבלים, הורס את התשתיות, ואנחנו עושים דבר נוסף. אנחנו תופסים את ציר מורג. זאת תהיה הפילדלפי השנייה. ציר פילדלפי הנוסף, משום שאנחנו עכשיו מבטרים את הרצועה, ואנחנו מוסיפים את הלחץ צעד אחר צעד, כדי שיתנו לנו את חטופינו. וככל שלא ייתנו, כך הלחץ יגבר, עד שייתנו.
And that's all on Beyond the Continent. Now, do remember that you may send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number on your screens now. And do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You may also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, StarTimes channel 274, Able TV, and on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.